As the man once said, even a blind squirrel finds an acorn some days. And since we call things down the middle on this program and always give credit where it's due, or we endeavor to, at any rate, I'm happy to report that the Joe Biden administration, 18 months down the road, has finally, mercifully, gotten one thing right. For the last living recipient of the Medal of Honor from the Second World War, Herschel W. Williams of Fairmont, West Virginia, better known as Woody, who passed away last week at the age of 98, is going to lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda starting tomorrow. And I'll grant you, it's probably stretching things to give Joe Biden and his administration very much credit for this, since it's kind of a no-brainer to begin with, and Senator Joe Manchin was the driving force in getting it done, it seems. So for that, and for saving the country from the Build Back Better Act, we salute Senator Manchin. I've always been struck by one quality that seems to be present in most or all of our Medal of Honor winners. And for our Commonwealth viewers, I think they'll agree it's a quality shared also by recipients of the Victoria Cross. And that is a sheepishness, an embarrassment almost, about having been awarded the medal and being an object of public acclaim for the remainder of one's life. And Woody Williams was one of those. In each of his interviews, almost the first thing he always said was, well, there were 100 other guys in my unit who were just as brave as me on that day, who didn't make it home. I was just doing my job the way I was trained to do it. But Woody Williams sells himself short with his modesty because on the day of his Medal of Honor action, 21 February 1945 on Iwo Jima, he wasn't doing the job he was trained for. He was doing a job he volunteered for because all the other guys who were trained for it and could do it were already dead. And it just happened to be the most hazardous job in the deadliest battle in the history of the U.S. Marine Corps. Woody Williams was a lance corporal assigned to the quartermaster, his job was to make sure that the flamethrowers were in good working order and the guys operating them had everything they required. Now, a backpack-mounted flamethrower is just about the last weapon that any sane man would want to carry into a battle. Someone worked out the math one time, and they determined that a flamethrower operator in the Pacific Theater had something like an 18-minute average lifespan in combat. So you're carrying 3 cylinders on your back. The outer 2 are gasoline. The central one is nitrogen. It all weighs around 85 pounds when the tanks are full, and that only gives you maybe 12 to 15 seconds of trigger time before you have to run back and get filled up again. So Woody Williams was the guy who, when your tanks are empty, you run back to the staging area and he gets you set up with some fresh tanks. But then all 3 of the flamethrower operators in Company C got killed. And then the quartermaster sergeant, the guy who was Woody's direct superior, he gets killed too. So they call a meeting of all the company NCOs, and they tell Woody to come along, but he says, wait, I'm just a lance corporal. And they said, son, you're the highest ranking guy who's still alive in your department, so whether you're an NCO now, whether you like it or not, so let's go. He goes to the NCO meeting, and the NCO in charge says, well, we need to take this position up here, but we're getting hammered from these pill boxes, and our flamethrower operators are all dead. So Lance Corporal Williams, I know you're just the maintenance guy, and you don't have to volunteer for this, but do you think you could operate this weapon well enough to help us out with capturing this objective? And he did know how to operate the thing, but not because the Marines had trained him to do it. He knew how to do it because he had asked the operators to show him how, because he thought that would make him a better maintenance guy. So they strapped the flamethrower on his back, they assign him a 4-man fire team, and they tell him to go neutralize the pillboxes. At that moment, no man on the island of Iwo Jima was less likely to survive to the age of 98 than Woody Williams was. All 4 of the Marines who were sent with him were killed within a matter of minutes. And Woody, the untrained guy who was operating this weapon system for the very first time in combat, well, he went and cleared the damn pillboxes pretty much all by himself. He spoke in one of his last interviews, and I'll put a link to it in the description, about how when he was presented with the Medal of Honor, he had barely ever heard of it and didn't really have any idea what it meant. He didn't know that it would mean a lifetime of celebrity and notoriety, and he wasn't at all ready for that. And a lot of Medal of Honor winners will tell you similar things, that carrying the mantle of Medal of Honor recipient is sometimes almost as difficult as whatever you did to win the medal in the first place. And this is a good reminder. As the last of our greatest generation are passing away from our midst, when you have a chance to say thank you to one of the few who remain, do not pass it up. They gave us the lives that we take for granted. Normally I would have Jim Eagle play a little bit of John Philip Sousa today, but they copyrighted me the last time, the bastards, so I guess we will have to settle for the usual. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where we wish America a happy 246th birthday by telling her she doesn't look a day over 25, her magnificent heaving bosom still defies gravity, and you can still bounce an ass off that quarter, or a quarter off that ass, as the case may be. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the program. I'm your eponymous host and humble servant. And I guess it was asking too much that our president and vice president should hold their noses for one weekend, even one day, and pretend not to revile our country on its birthday. Now, President and semi-animated cadaver Joe Biden spent most of the week in Europe, and in the continuing spirit of giving credit where it's due, I'm going to say good job, Joe, for not pooping or farting on any world leaders this time around that we know of, which I think that makes it an automatic improvement over his last European trip, doesn't it? The one where after he got home, Chevy Chase called him up and said, "Geez, I thought my European vacation was bad." And I don't know about you guys, but it always makes my chest swell with real patriotic fervor when the U.S. president stands in front of a crowd of smarmy, douchey Europeans and trolls for cheap applause by trashing his own country. It was Barack Obama who first made that into an art form. And it seems his former wingman is attempting to emulate his example, which, hey, when your approval rating is crashing through 30% and still falling with no bottom in sight, I guess the best you can do is try to make the Euros love you, right? Meanwhile, Vice President Michael Scott spent her Independence Day weekend doing what she often does, which is saying sequences of words that don't really add up to sentences. Seriously, if she has a signature personal trait, it's the ability to speak lots of words while saying absolutely nothing. This time, the thing she was trying to say, at least I think so, was that of all the liberties guaranteed to the American people by the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, the most important, the most crucial, the most elemental one of them all, the one is the very linchpin of our democracy itself, is abortion? But yeah, I think that's the thing she was trying to say. You never really know what you're going to get when Kamala Harris opens her mouth and begins speaking, which I suppose is, in a roundabout way, is a trait she shares in common with the president. But their techniques are strikingly different, so they do at least give us some variety, I guess. While the vice president is capable of enunciating words well enough to be understood, when she begins a sentence, she doesn't really have any idea what the end point is, and she often arrives at a rather unexpected destination. So you end up with these, I don't want to call them statements because that's too charitable, utterances, but whatever one chooses to call it, you get a series of words where each word sounds like a question. And eventually she decides to stop speaking, and she either punctuates it with a fit of awkward cackling laughter or makes puppy dog eyes toward her interlocutor as if to say, "Come on, tell me I'm brilliant and inspiring. You know you want to. I'm a woman of color. It'll be racist if you don't." Now, with the president, on the other hand, I think he imagines coherent sentences in his head sometimes. But somewhere on the roller coaster ride between the hunk of modeling clay that used to be his cerebellum and his mouth, everything just goes to shit, and you wind up with a sound that is akin to a man gargling his dentures while being waterboarded at Guantanamo, and the only words that can be clearly discerned are, "Come on, man," and "I'm not joking." Now, is there any other country whose elected leaders hold their country in such open contempt? Better yet, is there any other country whose leaders got elected on the strength of their hatred of the country they sought to lead? Because I haven't seen any, like ever. In my whole living memory, Barack Obama and Joe Biden are the only heads of state in the world whom I have ever heard speak slanderously of their own country and its own people. And to do it on foreign soil, on a continent where we liberated the people from subjugation more than once, and then stayed around to rebuild and guarantee their freedom. So when the American president goes over to Europe and tells the Europeans how bad we are, how do you suppose that goes over with men like Woody Williams? If he has any sense of decency, can't Joe Biden at least wait until those men are all dead before acting this way as the U.S. president in a way that totally dishonors their service and their sacrifice? And I asked that question of Obama and Biden equally, because, frankly, both of them should be ashamed of themselves. And America's birthday, it is as good an occasion as any to point out the fact, the inarguable historical fact, that the United States is the greatest force for good in the history of human civilization, and it is not close. Furthermore, the U.S. Constitution is the greatest founding document in the history of human civilization, and that is not close either. Go ahead, little wokester. You who hold your country in such contempt, tell me a better country, tell me a better charter, go for it. I will wait patiently right here for your reply. And how many countries down through world history have made a habit of going overseas to liberate other people from tyranny and oppression, making no territorial claims afterward, and then paying out of their own pocket to fix the damage? I'll give you a hint. There's only one country on that list, and it's the country that you, little wokester, seem to think is the wellspring of all moral evil in the universe. I mean, why do you suppose Germany and Japan are stable liberal democracies today? Do you think the Germans and the Japanese did that? No, they did not. We did that. Where 99% of the other conquering powers in world history would have seized the land, slaughtered the men, and dragged the women and children off into slavery, what did the United States of America do? We cleaned up the place, rebuilt it, gave the people the gift of democratic self-government, and then we shook hands with our new allies and we went home. Does an evil country act that way? If our country is a force for evil in the world, then what would a force for good look like exactly? And again, I challenge the little wokesters. If our example is so unambiguously bad, then will you please show me a good one? But these are all little questions, ultimately. The bigger question is this. Why does our country have an entire generation of young adults who need any of this explained to them? And whose fault is that? It would be easy to blame it all on the fake news media and the corrupt public schools and the woke corporations, and make no mistake, there's a culpability to go all around. But the first place we have to look is in the mirror. If your young adult child has a whole series of ideas about this country that are disconnected from the historical reality and has a political worldview that sounds like it was formed by reading bumper stickers off of Priuses, then as tempting as it is to chalk it all up to society and a culture gone mad, you can't. Because that cannot happen without apathy and inattention on your part as a parent, on the assumption that you're sending your little ones to the government school each day, and they're just learning the same middle-of-the-road scholastic curriculum that you did when you were a kid. But that stopped being a good assumption, yet you kept assuming it. And if there was ever a good thing about the goddamn god-awful COVID lockdowns, maybe it's the fact that a lot of parents got shocked right out of that apathy and inattention when they had an up-close look at what their kids were actually being taught in school, or on a Zoom call, as the case may be. And look, wacky leftist teachers have always been a fact of life. Wacky leftist teachers will always exist. And as long as you, the parent at home, are being attentive to such things, it doesn't have to be that big of a deal. If you want your kids to have a detailed understanding of the greatness of the United States, if you want them to have a deep and abiding appreciation of the fact that they struck the demographic lotto jackpot by being born a U.S. citizen, you have to do that work yourself. It takes about 8 or 9 minutes, in my experience, if you go fast, to read the Declaration of Independence out loud. It takes less than half that long to read the Gettysburg Address. But everything a child needs to understand about American democracy is contained in those two documents that can be read both in their entirety in less than a quarter of an hour. But they will stop you from time to time, especially during the Declaration, because they will want to know what some of the words mean, and so you answer them. And you help them develop a detailed understanding of what the immediate causes were that impelled our founders to renounce their allegiance to the British crown and to establish the country that we live in. This is the sort of thing that once upon a time used to be done in every school classroom in the land, but that does not happen anymore. The Declaration and the Gettysburg Address got squeezed to the margins by Drag Queen Story Hour and teachers seeking affirmation from the kids for being a genderqueer pansexual unicorn fairy. Which means we have to do the work ourselves now. And I use the word we with admitted reservation since my kids are all adults now and as yet I have no grandkids. But when I do, I will be all over their asses with some Declaration and some Gettysburg when it's the 4th of July. And you can do so much just with 15 minutes a year. You would be amazed. All it takes is a tiny bit of truth to overcome any amount of organized horse shit they can ever throw at us. In fact, do it right now. If it's a decent hour where you are, do it on the way to fireworks, on the way home from fireworks. Do it at fireworks. Sit your kids down. Read them the Declaration out loud. Tell them it's the birthday card we read to America each year on her birthday. I guarantee it will be an experience that is edifying and entertaining for everyone involved, and they will ask the best questions when they are confronted with some of that 18th century English. Great questions, questions that only kids can think of, and they will put you on the spot and expect you to know the answer. So keep on your toes is all I'm saying, because they will ask you for the receipts. I've been incredibly disheartened to see these videos lately of black people saying, no, I don't celebrate the 4th of July, I'm black, I celebrate Juneteenth. And attitudes like that can only happen out of ignorance of our founding documents, because there is no Juneteenth without the Constitution, which became the death warrant for slavery on the very day it was ratified. And though it did take some years, that warrant was ultimately served by the point of the sword, by the army of the country that calls July 4th its birthday and the Constitution its charter of freedom. So here's hoping it's been a pleasant Independence Day for you and yours. Enjoy your local fireworks. And there's another thing youngsters should have explained to them. Our country is so great. The only bombs bursting in air that our people know are the pretend kind. In other places, they are not so lucky. Thanks very much for watching. See you Wednesday. God bless America. Get off my lawn.